I am starting our recording. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 members. That's a quorum. So
Okay,
we can get started, James.
all right. First item, the January 25th minutes. Any discussion?
I move to accept.
Bill moves to accept.
I'll second it.
Second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye, Bill.
All opposed? No opposition. Okay. Second item is on an appointment on SPTIF.
South Peterborough TIF.
Yeah.
South Peterborough TIF. The South Peterborough TIF has, as with all the TIFs, have the opportunity to have 2 alternates. We only have 1 currently. And the TIF Advisory Board has voted to recommend that Keith Ackerley be appointed to that position. Keith is the owner of AC Electric and owns the building immediately next to the old Carroll facility. And he has a real interest in the South Pete TIF area, albeit his building is not yet in it. If the South Pete TIF area is rejiggered as is intended, his building will actually be within it. The second appointment we would like you to consider is a replacement for Bill James, who we all know is, well, I guess, has retired as of a couple of days ago. And Bill has recommended the appointment of Lara Shea, who is taking over the CEO position of Rivermead. I've polled all of the advisory board members with regard to both of those, unanimously approved. So that board is making the recommendation that you, that is EDA, further those recommendations, it's so complicated, to the select board for approval and appointment to those positions. I don't know if we technically need a motion to that effect, Karen, do we?
I think we should, Jerry.
Okay, let me make that motion then. I move that the EDA recommend to the select board the appointment of Keith Ackerley as an alternate to the SPTIF and Lara Shea as a full voting member of the SPTIF.
Second.
What was
Any
that?
discussion?
I missed 2 seconds. Jean? Thank you.
Jean?
Okay.
Okay. All in favor? Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? None. Okay, we move it to the select board.
Great.
Thank you, Jerry.
Got it.
The next item is with Bill, a marketing update, including the drum contract.
I want to make sure that everyone understands that Megan is also a member of our marketing committee. So thank you, Megan, for doing all the great work that you do. There's 2 items that I wanted to bring up. The first one was the select board had requested a report of the drum's contribution to our efforts, our EDA efforts. And Megan and I put together a report with information, of course, coming from Drum, talking about their influence on the town. Karen had made that presentation to the select board. I wanted to make it clear that it was Megan and my work. But in any case, you all have a copy, I believe, through email. I encourage you to read it. Their influence is really quite dramatic. What we're trying to figure out right now as part of the marketing committee is the best ways that we can get traffic to our Peterborough Works website, because that's really where you learn about all the various aspects of town besides the Peterborough town website. What was I going to say about that? Nothing much about that.
I
Megan,
thought the report was really fantastic. I mean,
thank you.
the accomplishments that have been made, I thought were really impressive. So
Oh, very impressive.
well done.
Yeah, I mean, I second that as well. I think that we cannot undervalue what Drum does for us in any way, because it is, to see the amount of work they put in that would be an actual person doing that. I can't imagine. So I'm so grateful to them. And again, they're the reason I'm on the EDA is because of Drum. So, you know, I can't stress that enough.
That's great. The second part of this is we have budgeted in the EDA budget monies for Drum's continuation after June the 30th. In addition to the amount of money, we would actually cut back a little bit on how much we'd spend with them. We currently spend $1,200 a month for their work. And their work includes social media postings and updates to the website. In any case, we have budgeted, I think, $600 per month post June the 30th. Karen, correct me if I'm wrong. But we have some monies left over. The $3,000 that we had actually allocated for the regional regional branding and marketing, apparently it was found in somewhere else in the budget. So we have some monies left over from the Warren article that we had. And apparently it's sufficient to continue to pay Drum their full $1,200 per month going forward from June the 30th to at least January the 1st. And that's what we'll consider in a moment. In addition to their postings, they also do some advertising through Google and a variety of other things. And they have a budget of about $150 per month to do that. And we would like to continue that as part of their contract. It's very dramatic. If you look at the analytics, it's extremely dramatic how many people actually start to come to our Peterborough Works website based upon their advertised and their media campaign.
So awesome.
It's you know, we have sort of like a basal viewership at the Peterborough Works website of about averaging 2 to 3 people a day, and one of those may be me because I go and look at it fairly often. But when they do a social media post, they of course point to the Peterborough Works website, and people see the media post and they go and visit the website. So it jumps from a basal of about 2 to 5 people a day up to 30 to 40 people for several days sequentially. So it's really very important that we continue that process and so on. Anyway, any questions about the report or where?
So in terms of the plan, do you want to just give the headline of that? In terms of the next year, we got 6 months and then 6 months.
In what aspect though?
Well, for the first 6 months, we're using the old reserve money, and then for the next
right.
6 months, we're using the budget
EDA funds.
EDA budget.
Right.
Right.
So I move, if I may, I move
Please.
that we go ahead and allocate, encumber in essence, encumber the funds left over from the warrant article to allocate a contract with Drum for the 6 months starting July 1st through December 31st, 2021.
Right.
I move.
I second.
Okay. So any further discussion? We envision that Drum will continue to do what they're doing. If any of you have any particular aspect of, you know, EDA or whatever that they could address in their postings, they're always looking for new ideas, new people, new places. So if you have any ideas, please share them with us, and we'll go from there. Yes, I know. Any further discussion of the motion?
James, you need to call for a vote.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
No opposition.
Thank you very
And
much.
one of the things I really liked on the report was Megan reporting that what was 1,000 viewers of her business were she reported as part of the report. I thought that was a great report. Thank you, Megan.
So, so the one technical piece of this is that we do need to contract with Drum, and that needs to happen before June 1st.
Mhm.
So, is the marketing committee going to do that, or is that something you would like me to do?
Traditionally, it had been done through your office, and then presented to the select board for approval, and then finally get the town administrator to sign it.
Okay, would you like, could someone make a motion to authorize me to do that? So with these funds, I think.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, great.
Second by Laura,
Second.
or more by Megan. Okay. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Approved. Okay.
Thank you. Let me just catch up here. Thank you. I'll give you a minute. Thank you. All right. Okay, thanks.
You're up next, Karen.
What are we talking about next here? Oh, James, okay, so there is, there's also a couple, there were two more items added to the agenda, which we did not talk about at the beginning, James. One is to talk about, Jerry wants to talk about Franklin Pierce. So I'm going to add that in under
Right.
old business, I guess, Jerry.
Yes,
And then
Okay.
we should also discuss the housing committee, James, at some point. So I'll just tack that on as well. Because I have an idea for that and I want to put that forward to the group. Great. So I wanted to share with you all, and I think I shared a PDF of an ad that we're putting together through my office. Given the fact that the governor has relieved, what is the word? We're no longer required to wear masks in public, according to the governor. However, there's concern in our community that our businesses still need to be protected and our workers need to be protected. So we came up with the idea to create an ad that would be shared by the business community and supported by the select board and the EDA. And when I first sent it out to you, we thought that we would need the EDA to fund it. However, we have discovered that there's FEMA money that could be used for this purpose. So, so what I'm doing with you today, instead of asking you for money, is actually just asking for your support of the ad as written, which includes the EDA. And I did send it to you, so I'm hoping you had a chance to look at it. And the plan is to run it twice in the paper. It's a third of a page color. It would run this Thursday and then the following Tuesday. And then it would also be a digital release to, I think it ends up being 8,000 homes, email addresses. So that the Monadnock Ledger transcript would send out. So, you know, so open to comments, questions about that. But at this point, the ad is in being final drafted today, and just want to make sure that the EDA is good with being included in it.
Any comments?
And I certainly can share it. I don't know if you guys have. Let me just.
I've read it. I think it's really an excellent an excellent subject to get out into the paper. I agree with it.
I'm just going to share my screen so we could just, oops, hello. I've got all kinds of things on my screen. That's not really what you want to be seeing.
I think the message is really great. I had one thought about maybe, I mean, and please, this is just one opinion. Somehow calling out a mask up somewhere on the ad. You have to take the time, just thinking of, people spend not much time reading an ad. Folks might not actually read all that copy, but if there was some highlight of mask up somewhere, a bolded sentence or something like that.
Okay.
Just a thought.
I'd like to second that. I think it's a little bit wordy and had trouble reading through it, and people are going to see it. So, some major mask up thing is a great idea, I think, Laura.
Mask up, please.
Yeah, there are a few more businesses that will be added into. So I'll make a note of that. I'll talk with the paper today. They're the ones who designed it. So
You're going to show it to us?
James, I am attempting to do that. My screens are full of all kinds of stuff. So hang on a second. Let me see if I can.
It was there a moment ago, Karen.
Was it there? Did you see it?
Yeah.
All right, great. So let me try that again because all right.
Masks are the new accessory.
Here we go. Can you see it? Let me open that up. Yeah, so it is wordy. Initially, it was just going to be a worded kind of like a public announcement, but the paper really dressed it up. So
Nobody reads the public announcements.
I know. So that's why the color, we thought the color and the visual would attract.
Mm-hmm.
And but I get the point about the masking, and maybe this kind of mask aspect of it could be made more prominent. But I was excited that there are, and we have a few more businesses to add in here. So it's more than 20 businesses that have said, yes, they want to be part of it. So that was pretty exciting. So great.
Karen,
Yes.
can you mute yours for a minute? Karen, I viewed a person refusing to wear a mask at Roy's the other day, and I wondered, are we still in the situation where if a business owner complains to the police that they will respond about that, or do you know?
Yeah, I think so. I think there's, I heard today, I was just on a call with Commissioner Caswell, and he said that there,
Hello?
can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay.
We didn't have our sound on.
All right. You guys are echoing.
She needs
No.
to turn her sound off.
My sound is off, but I've just got
Turn
a
your
microphone off. Yeah.
Okay, I got your question, Jean. Yes, so the universal guidance, from what I understand, is still that it is up to the businesses to determine whether a mask is required or not, and that if someone is refusing, they can refuse service, and if someone is becoming difficult, they absolutely should call the police, because they have that right. It's their business. So we do absolutely support our business community in enforcing whatever rules will keep their stores safe and their employees safe.
Great, really good effort. Karen, I'm curious, I mean, you do a great job communicating with the business community. What is your method to let people know of these opportunities and give them the chance to participate? Is it email that you do?
It is email, Laura. I have I've set up distribution lists for the business community and restaurants, and I have them kind of segregated, and then I email out to them, and I in this case I had an important, with an exclamation point on this one, and so that's how I've done it. I also recognize that like Roy's and Maggie's is not on this list, and was planning to, when we're done, just go walk over and see if I can find Peter to see if they want to be added. But
Do they pay a cost to be on the list, or?
No, of course not.
Well, I'd love it if you added the Max Makerspace to the list.
That's a separate list, James. That's the nonprofit list. So I have that list as well. This is really this was really for our local business retail. So, you know, in restaurants, that we were trying to really just focus on the
Well,
downtown.
you have the Monadnock Center is on that list that we just looked at, but
They're
not
right,
the Max.
they're right here downtown.
I
So
know,
you-
but Max Makerspace was not on that list.
They're
But the-
not downtown, James.
Oh,
They're not in the downtown. So what we're trying to do, because if you've been downtown this weekend, this last weekend, and the week, as the weather's warmed, what you're noticing is that there are lots of people out. And thank you, Megan. I see your note. We'll add Dogs on Depot. So what we're trying to do is really encourage the folks who are coming downtown to understand what the downtown businesses are asking for. And we have pushed out a little bit, but this is not a nonprofit
okay.
issue per se. This is the downtown. So that's why Mariposa and the Monadnock Center are part of this.
Okay, well, again, I think the one idea is to make the headline a little bit more related to the mask. So if there's something you could do to make the headline
I
a
got
little.
that. I've taken that note and I will call the paper when I'm done with this call.
Any other suggestions?
It's great.
And we don't have to approve a money budget.
No,
No
I'm
money.
just making sure you're okay with being included in it.
I think it's a great idea.
Okay, great. All right, I'm just making a note here about that, so I will contact. Great.
We can hear you, Bill.
Bill, go ahead. I can't see you.
There we go. I was working on unmuting. Just a real quick idea. Maybe, you know, you have the message bubble, maybe right underneath the arrow where it's pointing to where the message is coming from. Just simply say, mask up, please. That's the message, right?
I will let them know and I'll ask them to design it because that's what they do. Thank you. Okay.
Okay. We'll move on to the next item. 100% renewable energy, the warrant article. And I'm really pleased that Jean and Bill and I all wrote op-eds on that got into the paper during the last few weeks, supporting that article. My one question, if it is approved, is what role we might play in terms of the planning of this really major renewable energy in our community. How is that going to get done? Karen, do you know what the planning process will be in terms of creating that plan, which is supposed to be done by the end of this year?
I don't, James, I think it's, when I spoke with Ann Huberman and Bob Herring-Smith about it, they indicated that they thought the select board would appoint a committee to work on the both the education, public education, and also to be in a position where if there were infrastructure dollars coming from the feds and other places, that there could be a body that would make recommendation to the board about that. So that's how I understood it. So I'm not sure if it's EDA per se, or if it's something the select board would set up separately, but that may be, you know, obviously a conversation the board needs to have.
I acted as sort of an ad hoc liaison between the EDA and the Peterborough Energy Committee. And they're very active in this whole.
Oh, yeah.
So, you know, I would enjoin, if we're going to get involved, I would enjoin the PEC to help out in that regard. So I know Ann and Joel pretty well and keep in contact with her. We spent some time together over at the recycling center this Saturday, but in any case. So I fully expect that warrant article will pass.
Well, I hope so. And in my impression is what it then is going to require getting done is maybe some new businesses being created right here in our town to install new energy capability, and maybe a new solar capability, a new hydro capability, a new wind capability. I mean, it may involve new businesses right here in town to make it happen. It didn't sound to me like it was going to be having to be done in my condo. It would be done by businesses in our community. Is that a correct impression of what this is all about?
I think it's a little bit more comprehensive than that. But
Well, Jean, what's your impression?
I don't have the answer to your question, James, but I.
Just
we
muted
lost
you.
and all right.
I'm talking through Bill's microphone, which but I think I wanted to ask Jerry if you've heard of anything going on as far as training goes, because I've heard that we've got a real shortage both on the solar installation, the telecommunications installation. I hear there's a real shortage of broadband installers, which is going to get worse if we get infrastructure dollars going in that direction. So if we're thinking about all those potential federal infrastructure jobs, if any of your businesses or schools or anybody's been talking about that.
I have not heard anything to that extent about that subject.
I can comment that there was conversation on the call with Commissioner Caswell this morning about a statewide workforce shortage, period. And it's happening everywhere. So whether it's technology or it's the restaurants or it's large manufacturers, it's happening. And it's the discussion this morning had to do with the fact that folks it's still 3% unemployment, right? People are collecting unemployment starting May 23rd. They're reinstituting the work search requirement at unemployment. So folks will have to start, but the kids have just gone back to school, right? And so parents are trying to figure out after school care, summer school care. Now they're going to have to be looking for work and getting back to work. So I think, but this is happening all over. And then of course the housing issue and affordable housing rears itself, because even if we could attract folks to come and live here and work here, we have to have a place for them to live. And so that's happening. That whole discussion is now happening at the state. I'm sure it's been happening, but we were having that discussion this morning too. So I just think this is going to be a number of moving parts.
I just want to
Yeah.
interject something. I had a really interesting conversation yesterday. I was at a birthday party with a number of recent grads. And one young woman who's just graduating from Wellesley told me that she is the only one among her friends who's been able to get a job. And, when you hear that, and then you hear what you just said, I see that we've probably got a structural unemployment issue. We've got people graduating who want certain kinds of jobs, and then we have very different kinds of jobs available. And I haven't heard discussion of that, and I was rather startled to hear what you had to say.
Well, it's a very good point about the education and about the sort of new capabilities and new workers. And now I'm tempted to add another dimension to the Max Makerspace in terms of training and business support. And I will certainly push that at the Makerspace. And maybe we can call this the sharing energy project, the sharing energy project, to complement our sharing arts project. Yes.
But I think the young woman's complaint was the fact that she wasn't able to find employment in the area that she was trained.
Well, she was, but none of her friends
None of her friends were. They were all dissatisfied with job offerings because it wasn't in the area that they were interested.
Well, but she said she had to put in 70 applications, job applications.
What is her field of study that she's interested in?
Oh, but this was all her friends, not just her. So it wasn't limited specifically to her field. But she said her friends were under the same situation.
But
But
do
again,
we know
it's-
what her friend's expertise is? If they're all Greek language
No, no.
scholars,
She's
issue,
in economics. Jerry.
okay. Oh, but her friends, that's the question.
Yeah, no, they were a broad spectrum of people.
That's really
Okay.
interesting.
But they weren't in the trades, I can tell you that.
Right.
Exactly.
I would think not, coming from Wellesley.
Yeah,
The jobs are in manufacturing, the trades, and
service.
service, low paid service. And that's not what we're graduating from a lot of the colleges.
Let me toss in a thought for James. James, I'm sure you're aware, but Kristen Narr over at Convale has a series of 1-hour presentations Zooming with local employers, major ones. People I know, from all the big ones around have been participating.
Mhm.
And she includes in that the community colleges and otherwise. And I attended a couple of those. One of the community colleges was talking about their programs that dovetail with the Convale, training programs and so forth. You might want to follow up with Kristen on that and see if somehow there's a Convale community, education link that someone could put together for this kind of business.
That's a
What would be that connection? Give me that.
The last name is Narr, Knarr. First name is Kristen. She's her title keeps changing. It's tough for me to define, except that she's,
CTE, the Career and Technical Education Center.
yeah, but it keeps changing because so many things change there. James, I'll send you her link with a little,
good.
well, what I'll do is I'll send her a note with you linked, explaining why we're reaching out to her.
Good.
Okay.
Send me a copy as well, Jerry.
Okay.
I sit on the Maxed Makerspace
right.
board as well.
Okay,
So, and James, you and I can work on Roy.
Yeah, good.
It's
Well-
something that I've been pushing for quite some time, but in this time of COVID, it was really difficult to put a program together.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, again, I think this, another thing is, let's all work to get it passed in a few days, because the vote's coming up in about a week, and I hope it's a real positive vote. All right, moving on. It's back to you, Karen.
Okay.
Your BVS brochure.
So I just want to mention that I got forwarded to me from Laura Norton, a renewal. Well, it was a notification, and I'm just trying to figure out what we want to do with it. But it had to do with the brochure program that we were doing with the state. And Jean, this is probably in your area because this happened with you. But we had not renewed this brochure or being part of the Information Center brochure program in 2020. And I'm just wondering if this is something the group feels like needs to be done again or not. But it just came to me, so I'm just raising it with y'all.
It's rather expensive for us to put it on the rack, isn't it?
Well, so I think there might be two issues. Are we talking about re-upping the rack issue, or are we talking about reprinting the brochure?
I think we're talking about both, Jean.
Okay. I don't know about putting it on the rack, but the only one that we could afford was, I lost my picture here. The only one that we could afford was the one going south. And, I think I agree with you, Karen. But as far as reprinting and putting them around town, I think it's very important as a follow-up so that when people visit, they've got something to take home and to see. But Karen, that required, I bought a bunch of literature holders and put them around town and gave them to merchants and so forth. Some of those have disappeared. And I think maybe the one that was most used, the one outside the Toadstool and the one over by Little Roy's, I'm not sure those are still there. But also Laura Norton was the one who was filling those. And so you might check as to whether she thinks that's still something she's supposed to be doing. Because
Okay.
I don't know that she even.
That may come to me now because we've split off, but and let me also
walks around town at lunchtime too, right?
yeah, well, and I can also check and see what kind of supply of these we have. I'm not really sure.
Yeah.
So, I'll follow up. But so what I'm hearing you say is no rack program. We don't need to worry about that, right?
I think so, and that was probably the larger cost involved. But I do think it's very valuable to have the brochures around town.
Okay.
And anecdotally, I talked to several people who've actually recently moved into town or over the last few years, and they all mentioned that trifold pamphlet as being one of the tools that they used to attract them into town. So I strongly urge that we continue that program.
Very good.
Is there any motion you need on this or what's?
No, I don't think I do, James. I just need to.
We don't need to spend money on
Not
it?
spending money.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Andy Peterson is joining. Okay, great. Bring him in. James, could I just jump to talking about the housing committee? Because I know that's why Carol has joined us
Hello, Andy.
on the call. Hi, Andy.
Hi, certainly.
Hi, would that be okay if I?
Well, yeah, and given that Andy's just come in, it's the perfect timing. Yeah.
Okay, great. So I wanted to, I was looking back through the minutes of the EDA over the last several years, because I had a question in mind about when the housing committee started, you know, when I think Megan dropped out. Let me get her back. So I had a question about what was the impetus of the housing committee, the Affordable Housing Committee of the EDA? And James, you may be the person who knows the answer to this, but I was looking for minutes, notes, something, and I couldn't find anything except for an occasional mention in the EDA minutes. And the reason why I am raising this is because there's, as you're all aware, there's just a ton of conversation going on in the community right now around affordable housing. It was topic during the select board candidates forum. It's topic probably, I'm sure it will be topic for the planning board and zoning board forum this week. It's everyone is talking about it on social. So as you all know, the Community Task Force on Housing officially disbanded a few months back. And that was kind of a separate kind of run from the select board committee, different from the the Affordable Housing Committee of the EDA. But there is a desire, I'm hearing in the community, to reconstitute a group, a body of some kind in the community to really take on affordable housing. And what I'd like to propose to the EDA is that the housing committee, as was established here, could be that body. So James, can you just provide a little background on how the Affordable Housing Committee started here?
Well, I really can't even say how it started. All I can say is that in the last year, it's become reasonably invisible. It really has not been really much underway, but I think we ought to get it back into action. And also, you know, we ought to be getting the notes, because Pelagia, the chairman of that committee, ought to be doing the notes, which she's supposed to do, but we have not had a meeting for many, many months, but we need to.
And Pelagia was the chair, though she's not a member of the EDA?
She's the chair of the committee, yes.
Yeah, so Karen, what we used to do, for instance, I used to chair the marketing committee, even though I wasn't on the EDA, before I was on the EDA. So what we did in order to expand, the capabilities of the EDA, we had extra members who, had time to do one subcommittee, but didn't have time to do both the subcommittee and the EDA. And I think that's what it was really, as I recall, it was Hope Taylor and Pelagia who really pushed this initiative.
So, but was it, I guess, what I didn't see was that there was any official establishment of that committee. Like when the EDA funded the Welcome Team, for example, it was established as an official committee of the EDA, right? So
Yes.
so that did not happen with this.
That's correct. That's correct.
Okay.
It was really an ad hoc, informal. They would just come and make presentations and tell us what they were up to. So, I'm not really sure you would even call it a committee of the EDA. I think the only cross member was James.
Okay.
Well, I think it's an important committee, and I think we ought to get it really back into action. So I will work on that with Pelagia, and any other suggestions that we have on that. I certainly.
Yeah. Well, James, I guess my thinking is this, and I'm open to what folks are thinking, but there were 30 some members of the Community Task Force on Housing. There are probably a dozen of them who are kind of chomping at the bit to get back together or to get back to work. So, but we need to do it under an existing body, right? Not the select board, because that's where it got confusing. So James, do you want to work with me on that as the one active EDA member, or anyone else on the EDA want to kind of be that representative to help kind of put form to what this committee would do?
I certainly am very happy to do that, because it's one of my most favorite topics in terms of the sustainability of our community. Yes.
Okay. Anyone else want to be part of that?
My other one, Andy, what do you have to say on this subject? What should we be doing?
Well, I think that, let me see if I can get, can you hear me?
You're
Yeah.
on. You're on.
Oh, great. Okay. Well, I'm currently dealing with at least 2 major groups through other brokers or directly who are looking to put together affordable housing in the community. So I don't think it would be appropriate for me to be on a town committee, that's making judgments about this. I agree with everybody here, I'm sure, that this is something that's been a marked priority for our community for some time, and there's a lot of interest which is not affiliated, with any, representing anybody in the sale of property in seeing this happen one way or the other. And I'd certainly welcome that. I can't see the ED&A committee being something that would, sponsor or give a house to a committee that would look into this, see what grants are available, see what properties are available, see what groups they might want to work with, et cetera. But I would probably suggest that it not be the ED&A committee that does it, but has, contributes a member, gives a home to it, and then looks to appoint a group, because there are many interested people in town who aren't on the ED&A, but would be very interested to work with the town of Peterborough to, see what could be garnered in order to achieve the purpose. Obviously, it's expensive to build housing to modern codes and have it be, at the end of the day, an affordable price tag for the people involved. Additional density given by the planning authorities is a part of the solution. But there also may be a requirement for application of grants and other low interest loans and so forth in order to do it. So I certainly don't want to be the chief cook and bottle washer of that on both sides of the issue. I just don't think that's proper.
Right.
Well,
But
I'd like
Andy, I just want, James, can I just clarify what Andy
Sure.
said? Andy, I just want to make sure I heard what you said, so I captured it correctly. So you're saying that you think it is appropriate for a committee under the EDA to be having these discussions and to be looking at grants and to be making, to bring the community together around this, or are you saying it isn't? Because I wasn't clear.
Well, I think we ought to base it on what the selectmen, you know, what their direction is. As I understand our committee, we're appointed by them and are kind of you know, authorized, you know, via the selectmen's, you know, authority to, you know, chart the future course of the town, which is something that I think we really need to, you know, understand and support in all cases, because they're directly, you know, you know, installed by the voters. But I think if you went to the selectmen and they thought that it was appropriate to have an ED&A member and other members, you know, appointed to a committee like this in order to be able to report back to them, you know, and work with them to achieve this, you know, what we're looking for as an outcome, which is to have more affordable housing for the working people in Peterborough, and people with more limited means. Then I think that's a you know, a good thing. But I would suggest that we have the authority flow from the selectmen to do it and be in a position of suggesting and helping on our side. And my other problem is just that, again, it would be beyond speaking in general terms about something like this. You know, find it kind of difficult because we've recently had efforts on the part of people to buy property locally in order to have this happen. And I was directly involved with that. So I want to be very clear about that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Laura had her hand up, and James.
I'm curious, Peter Reed had written a letter to the editor. Did anything ever come of that?
I'm aware that Peter is working with a group of private investors and is looking for property to do workforce housing, and has yet to identify a property that would work. So still, but I know that he's got a number of people who are interested to invest in that.
So,
Well, again, I can also say that I'm working with some property to put in a rather major affordable workforce housing building, and they want it totally confidential. And that's why I cannot tell you in this committee about it, because they don't want it to be known until they've spoken to their neighbors so they don't get attacked because it somehow shows up in the ledger before a neighbor has heard about it. So again, the housing thing is a bit of a somewhat complicated process because it's got to go into land, it's got to get approved by neighbors. I mean, it's not an easy process. And we do definitely need the support of the select board to make it happen. But we also make this committee more active, and I will make sure that happens from my point of view, and anybody else on this committee who would also like to be involved.
Laura?
is Southwest Regional Planning involved with any of these groups?
Yeah, Southwest Regional Planning has a housing group that meets regularly. A part of that, and they're looking at it from a regional perspective. So clearly, you know, what we are dealing with here is not Peterborough specific, right? It's the whole region. So yes, Laura, but I think, you know, as I mentioned kind of in a Facebook conversation the other day, it really comes down to land, and it comes down to having a plot of land, having then investors who want to do affordable housing, having perhaps some incentives from the state, you know, being able to find a builder who wants to do it. It's like but I think it starts with the land, and it starts with the landowner who's willing to look into how we might do that kind of development.
It also then starts with zoning, because that's one of the first questions about land is,
Right. So,
will the zoning permit it? Yes.
yeah, and I know that, like folks like Peter have had conversations with Danica, who will look at an idea or look at a piece of land and, specify kind of what the parameters are and what can be done.
I'm very impressed with what Danica's doing. She's got really great experience and yeah. So, okay, in terms of next step on this, I will make sure this committee gets back into action and is officially a part of the EDA, because that's already acknowledged by the select board that it is a connection to the EDA.
Well, is it, James, though? I mean, there's nowhere official that I've seen it. So
Elijah would say she knows it's an official part of the EDA.
I know she would say that. I looked for it in the minutes. So that I'm just wanting to keep us above board here.
I will push it on the minutes.
I think that Karen is right.
Well, you're on here twice now, Jean. This is really good.
I think Karen is right. I think once you folks decide exactly how you want to do it, we should make a motion and approve it, and then submit it to the select board. So let's submit our ideas to the select board.
All right. So James, I got a chat from Laura that she's interested to be part of this conversation too. So why don't we just set up a separate conversation about housing and see what to do. Okay, that'll be our next step. James, Laura, Karen.
Thank you.
All right, the other side was Franklin Pearson. We've only got about a couple minutes. Jerry.
Yeah, it can be pretty quick. As you know, we have not really reconnected with Franklin Pierce because we decided that our local businesses were wary of advertising that Franklin Pierce community should be coming up to us. Franklin Pierce is reopening, as I'm sure you've seen in the papers. And because of the relationship we developed, it's really appropriate that if we are interested in rekindling that I reach out to them and say, how do we start a program? I know they're up to their eyeballs dealing with their own problems, but rather than get down to mid-July when they have their incoming group, and then we say, oh, and we want to do this, we need to get a green flag early. We don't need it today. The other thing is, if you recall, the town printed a few thousand, I don't remember the number, of a very pretty brochure that was extracted from a regional magazine. Those thousands are sitting in the basement of some town building, and we have not distributed them or anything of that nature. Originally, they were developed to be used at the FPU incoming meetings, but they can be used for other purposes. One thing I had proposed at that time, but then it all died for obvious reasons, was getting those onto the racks for free, hopefully, at all the B&Bs that we can reach in the area. And I'd like to know if we would like to start doing that, and whether or not we're of a mind for us to reach out to FPU at this time. That's the subject.
Jerry, do you know if they have a vaccination requirement at FPU at this point?
I do not believe so, but they have put in a whole bunch of programs. One thing I will do, obviously, is determine from them what their protocols are for incoming.
Jerry, I would offer that you and I could have a conversation about FPU and see what the opportunities might be. I know Kristen was working with you before on that when she was here. So, certainly willing to pick that up with you.
For those who probably it's more for Bill, who are in touch with the local businesses, Karen and Bill, local businesses, you might get a feel for whether or not they would like to entertain FPU parents and students coming into town. That might help us decide where we want to go.
It's a great idea.
Good idea.
I think that's a good question, Jerry, and I think considering the challenges of the restaurant community in particular right now in workforce and not being able to fully open, I mean, that's really what we're seeing. I don't know how much push we want to make early.
Well, an interesting side to that, if you no reason you'd recall. But one of the opportunities identified is that many of the FPU students take side jobs, many of whom do service work at restaurants and delis and so on and so forth. So there was actually a pool of potential employees there. That's another subject, whether or not, Waterhouse or whomever would want to hire an FPU employee. So
That's a great point. And I think that's definitely one to take up with FPU to see if, because I know almost every restaurant is hiring in town right now.
Yeah, remind me, Jerry, didn't Franklin Pierce offer to house these summer job students?
yes, that's part of their standard program. If you have a local job, you may stay for free at the housing in Franklin Pierce. And we thought that would be a fantastic pool of resources for summer employment.
Yep.
And of course, COVID killed that, but it's going to come back.
Well, I wonder if that offer is still on the table.
I don't see why it would not be, but if I get the flavor that it's okay to open a dialogue with them, that will be one of the things to discuss.
Well, I hate to put the cart before the horse, but if I go in and talk to some of the small business owners, particularly the restaurateurs, and I say, look, we have a potential pool of Franklin Pierce students who can help out during the summer at least, and maybe beyond. I'd like to say that with some confidence and get their feedback as to whether they would want that to happen. Do you see any reason why I shouldn't be able to talk about
No
that?
reason at all.
Okay.
No. There's, of course, there's a question of uptake. You know, if the restaurants go in and offer jobs and nobody takes them, well, not much we can do.
Well,
So
Bill,
you
maybe, I'm wondering, Bill, maybe to just say that it's prospective, since we don't exactly have the green flag from FBU yet on that. Right, Jerry? I mean, you're going to check that out.
Yeah,
I will check it out, but I think it's 99%. There's no reason that they would not want to be.
Well, I'm certainly not going to promise anybody a job, but
Right, of course.
Okay, if you two to work on that, that'd be great.
Okay, good.
We're right at the end. I've got one last question. I think we nominated Nick Zotto to be a member of the EDA. What has happened on that?
Oh my gosh, I completely dropped that ball, James. Nick was with which
People's
bank?
Bank. People's Bank.
Oh my goodness, I don't have him on my list.
Well, but I think he was nominated. We had to get him approved by the select board.
A rare miss, Karen, a rare
Wow,
miss.
I dropped out. That completely dropped. I will follow that up, and my apologies.
Okay, but I don't think he's dropped out, has he, Laura?
No, I don't think so.
No, we were working with him because he wanted to come in. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I'll follow. Laura, I don't know if I have his email address. Let me get that from you. So sorry. Definitely missed that one.
might be a great addition to your marketing committee as well. Not the marketing committee, the housing committee as well, James. So
Yeah, good idea.
Okay. Great.
All right, next meeting, July 19th at 11 a.m.
There
All
we are.
right.
do we have items on our agenda that may precede July 1st?
Good point.
If we do, we can, if we need a vote, say on the drum contract, for example, that's the one thing I'm aware of. We could probably just circulate and do a vote via email or a quick Zoom.
Well, distribution of Jerry's materials down at FPU is probably a topic we should solve before July 1st. So just be
Yeah.
aware that we may have to get together sooner than later.
Well, it depends on whether or not that's an operational piece or that's something that this group wants to do themselves. So just to think about. But if we need to meet ahead, the chair can call a meeting and we can get it on the calendar.
Okay.
Do we not meet in June traditionally? I'm new this year.
We're on quarterly.
We're quarterly. Okay.
But James can always call a meeting if there's a need. So.
Okay, but again, we've got some things underway here where we might have to do that. So
Okay.
we'll stay in touch. All right. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
And a second from Jean.
Okay.
All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Okay. Thank you all.
See you, everyone.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Karen.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.